the alien distress beacon came out of nowhere. The sleek, battle-worn frigate Ironclad Resolve had been cruising the edges of human-explored space, a routine patrol meant to secure trade routes and scare off any opportunistic pirates. Commander Alara Quinn sat in her chair on the bridge, absent-mindedly twirling a stylus between her fingers while the crew carried out their tasks. She hadn't expected excitement. This was supposed to be a milk run. But when the distress call hit the ship's sensors, the lazy hum of routine shattered in an instant. The signal wasn't just alien, it was ancient, encoded in a language humanity had only partially deciphered from fragmented archaeological discoveries on long-dead planets. "That's no modern tech," murmured Lieutenant Dane, the ship's communications officer, his brows furrowed as streams of data scrolled across his console. "This predates most of what we've seen out here. It's almost primal." Alara's eyes sharpened, and she leaned forward. "Origin point?" Dane hesitated, then brought up a holographic map that hovered above the center of the bridge. "About 12 parsecs out, right near the edge of the Kalrath Expanse." The Kalrath Expanse. The name alone carried weight. A region of uncharted, dangerous anomalies where ships vanished without a trace. Some said it was cursed, others speculated it was infested with rogue AI or hostile alien predators. But a distress call from that region? That was new. "Could be a trap," said First Officer Tarek Voss, standing tall beside Alara. His deep voice carried the authority of someone who had seen too much and trusted too little. "Plenty of smugglers use fake signals to lure ships out there." "And yet," Alara countered, her eyes locked on the holographic map, "it's the first time we've picked up something this old. If it's real, we could be looking at tech or artifacts that could rewrite what we know about the galaxy." Tarek crossed his arms, skeptical but unable to argue with the curiosity that sparked in the air. The rest of the bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances, aware of what their commander's tone implied. They were going to investigate. The frigate adjusted its course, engines flaring as it shot toward the signal. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional update from Dane or the engineers reporting minor adjustments to the ship's systems. Alara remained in her chair, her mind a whirl of possibilities. She had grown up on stories of ancient civilizations and the so-called Deathworlders, species so biologically hardy they could survive on planets considered utterly inhospitable by galactic standards. Humans, it turned out, were one of them. The idea that this distress signal might have been sent by another Deathworlder species, long vanished from the stars, sent a thrill down her spine. When they arrived, the source of the signal became clear, a derelict ship floating in the void. It was massive, far larger than any vessel built by humans or known alien species. Its hull was a deep, matte black that seemed to absorb the light from the frigate's external beams, giving it an almost ghostly presence. Strange glyphs etched along its surface glowed faintly, pulsating in a rhythm that mirrored the distress beacon signal. "By the stars," Dane whispered, breaking the spell of awe that had fallen over the bridge. "Scans?" Alara asked, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. "Minimal energy readings," reported the ship's science officer, Dr. Kira Song. "Life signs, inconclusive. The hull is made of a material we've never seen before. Stronger than anything we've got." Alara nodded, her decision already made. "Prep an away team. Tarek, you're with me." Tarek's frown deepened. "You don't need to lead this yourself. We can send a team. This is too big to sit back and wait for a report." "I'll take the lead," Alara said firmly. She had a reputation for being hands-on, a trait that both inspired loyalty and exasperated her crew. Within minutes, the away team was suited up and standing in the airlock. The team consisted of Alara, Tarek, Dr. Song, and two heavily armed Marines, Simmons and Vega. They entered the derelict ship cautiously, their lights cutting through the darkness inside. The air was thick and stale, carrying a faint metallic tang. Strange markings lined the walls, some glowing faintly, others dark and cracked like old scars. "It's like walking into a tomb," Simmons muttered, his voice tight with unease. "Stay sharp," Tarek warned. His rifle was at the ready, sweeping the corridor ahead as they moved deeper into the ship. They found the source of the beacon in what appeared to be the ship's central chamber. A massive console dominated the room, covered in more glowing glyphs and strange, fluid-like designs. Suspended above it was a holographic projection of a planet, a hostile, volcanic world riddled with jagged mountain ranges and rivers of molten lava. But it wasn't the planet that drew their attention. In the corner of the chamber, a figure lay slumped against the wall. It was humanoid but unmistakably alien, its skin a shimmering, chitinous silver that seemed to ripple like liquid mercury. It wasn't moving, and its chest, if it could be called that, was still. Dr. Song moved cautiously toward the figure, her scanner in hand. "It's alive," she said after a moment, her voice tinged with both relief and confusion. "Barely. It's in some kind of stasis." Elara approached the console, her eyes scanning the glyphs. "This ship's been here for centuries, maybe millennia. How is anything alive on it?" "Better question," Tarek interjected. "Why send a distress signal now? What woke it up?" Before anyone could answer, the console lit up with a sudden intensity. The hologram above it shifted, showing a massive fleet of ships closing in on the volcanic world. Then, a new projection appeared, a skeletal, insect-like species with serrated limbs and glowing red eyes. The message was clear: the aliens had called for help because their world had been invaded. "They're showing us a war," Simmons said, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," Elara corrected, her expression grim. "They're showing us a warning." Before anyone could react, the derelict ship groaned, and the floor beneath them shuddered violently. Whatever had been dormant for centuries was waking up, and they were caught in the middle of it. The shuddering beneath their feet grew worse, a deep, guttural vibration that reverberated through the derelict ship like a groan of awakening. Dust and fragments of ancient metal dislodged from the ceiling, falling in slow, deliberate arcs that seemed almost suspended in the ship's stale air. Elara tightened her grip on the console as the glyphs pulsated with erratic bursts of light. Whatever they had triggered, it wasn't good. "Commander, we need to move," Tarek barked, his voice cutting through the rising chaos. He shifted his rifle, scanning the dim chamber for threats. "Not yet," Elara shot back. Her eyes darted across the glyphs on the console, trying to make sense of the patterns that flickered like the heartbeat of some alien mind. "This ship is waking up, and I think it's because of us. If we run now, we might lose any chance to understand what's happening. Or get crushed when this thing falls apart." Simmons added, gripping his weapon like it was the only thing tethering him to sanity. Dr. Song knelt beside the shimmering alien figure in the corner, her scanner emitting faint beeps. "Commander, whatever triggered this wasn't just us entering the ship. This life form, it's connected to the ship somehow. Its vitals are stabilizing, but its neural activity is spiking off the charts." "Spiking?" Tarek's voice was laced with suspicion. "Spiking how?" "Think, a dying star going supernova," Song replied, glancing nervously between the alien and her scanner. "It's like its brain is running a million processes at once. The signal might not have been a call for help, it could have been a reaction to waking up." Elara grimaced, weighing her options as the ship's vibrations escalated. "If it's waking up, then maybe it can tell us what's going on." "Talk to it?" "Are you serious?" Tarek asked incredulously. "We don't even know if it can communicate, let alone whether it's hostile. Every second we waste debating, we lose the chance to figure this out," Elara snapped. Her fingers danced over the console, guided by intuition and the faint logic she could discern from the glyphs. A soft hum filled the room, and the hologram shifted again, displaying what appeared to be the same skeletal invaders from before, but now they were moving, spreading, their serrated limbs tearing through cities built on jagged cliffs. The volcanic planet from the earlier image burned under their assault. "Wait," Song said, her voice tight. "I think the alien's neural activity is reacting to the ship's systems. Commander, whatever you just did, it's syncing with the ship." Before Elara could respond, the figure in the corner stirred. Its silver, liquid-like skin rippled, and its eyes, two glowing orbs of deep violet, blinked open. The crew froze. The alien's gaze swept the room, landing on each of them in turn. Then, with a sound like rushing water, it pushed itself upright, towering nearly 2 heads taller than Alara. It opened its mouth, or what they assumed was its mouth, and emitted a series of sharp clicks and guttural growls. The language was alien, incomprehensible, but the urgency in its tone was unmistakable. "Ah, Commander," Vega said, her voice trembling as she raised her weapon slightly. "I don't think it's happy to see us." "Stand down," Alara ordered, though her pulse quickened. She raised her hands in a gesture of peace and took a cautious step forward. "We're not here to hurt you. We responded to your distress signal." The alien tilted its head, the clicks and growls fading as its glowing eyes fixed on the hologram above the console. It raised a long, spindly arm and pointed to the invading fleet, then to the away team, before finally tapping its chest. The message was clear. "They want us to help," Alara said, glancing back at her team. "Help?" Tarek said, his disbelief palpable. "Against that?" He jabbed a finger at the hologram, where the skeletal creatures continued their relentless assault. "Commander, we don't even know what we're up against. For all we know, this thing could be leading us into a trap. Or it could be the only chance we have to learn what happened to this ship and its people," Alara countered, her voice firm. "If this fleet is a threat to them, it could be a threat to us too. We need to know more." Before Tarek could argue further, the alien reached out and touched the console. The ship's vibrations stopped instantly, replaced by a deep, resonating hum. Lights flickered on in the chamber and down the corridors beyond, illuminating a labyrinthine network of passageways. The alien gestured for them to follow. Alara nodded, motioning to her team. "Stay alert, but we're going." The alien led them deeper into the ship, through corridors lined with strange, organic structures that seemed to pulse faintly with life. As they walked, the alien occasionally stopped to touch panels embedded in the walls, triggering bursts of glyphs and holograms that displayed snippets of a long-lost civilization. Cities built into the sides of volcanic cliffs. Ships soaring through ash-filled skies. And finally, the skeletal invaders, descending in massive swarms like locusts. "It's showing us their history," Song said, awe in her voice. "Their world, it must have been a death world, like Earth. Look at those conditions, constant eruptions, toxic atmosphere. They thrived in it. And then they got wiped out," Tarek added grimly. "Not all of them," Alara said, glancing at the alien ahead of them. "At least one survived." The journey ended in a vast chamber filled with towering structures that resembled crystalline spires. The alien approached one of the spires and placed its hand on it. The entire chamber lit up, revealing rows upon rows of what looked like stasis pods embedded in the walls. Most were dark and empty, but a few glowed faintly, their occupants suspended in shimmering fluid. This wasn't just a ship, Alara realized. It was an Ark. They were trying to escape. But escape to where? Tarek asked. The alien didn't answer, instead gesturing to another console. Alara approached it cautiously and activated the glyphs. The hologram shifted again, this time displaying the skeletal fleet moving through space. They were heading toward a new target. Alara's blood ran cold as the map expanded, showing the fleet's destination, human-controlled space. "They're coming for us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The chamber's glow dimmed as the hologram flickered, solidifying the stark truth they now faced. The skeletal fleet wasn't just a relic of some ancient war, it was active, it was moving, and it was heading straight for humanity's core systems. Alara felt the weight of the revelation pressing down on her chest, but there was no time to dwell on the enormity of the situation. The alien turned to face her, its glowing eyes locking onto hers with a sense of urgency that transcended language. "It's warning us," Dr. Song said, her voice tight with tension. "It's trying to tell us what's coming." "Yeah, but how do we stop it?" Simmons muttered, glancing nervously at the stasis pods lining the walls. "We don't even know what these things are, let alone how to fight them." Alara took a steadying breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. "This ship is our best shot. Whatever technology it has, whatever weapons it carried, it was built to face that fleet. If we can figure out how to power it up. Before she could finish, a deep, resonating sound echoed through the chamber, like the rumble of a distant avalanche. The alien whipped around, its posture tense, and raised its spindly arm to point at the corridor they'd come from. The ship's vibrations had returned, but now they felt different, sharper, more erratic. "We're not alone anymore," Tarek growled, gripping his rifle tightly. "Something's moving out there." The alien gestured urgently, its clicks and growls coming faster, almost frantic. It pointed to one of the crystalline spires, then to the stasis pods, and finally to the away team's weapons. The message was clear: prepare for a fight. "What's coming?" Vega asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Does it matter?" Tarek snapped, motioning for the team to take defensive positions. "We hold this chamber. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Elara turned to the alien. "If this ship has defenses, now would be a good time to activate them." The alien hesitated, then moved to the console and began manipulating the glyphs with a fluid precision that suggested muscle memory. Lights flared to life across the chamber, and the hum of power intensified, but it wasn't fast enough. From the corridor, a series of sharp, metallic screeches echoed, followed by the rhythmic clatter of many legs skittering against the walls. "They're here!" Simmons shouted, raising his weapon. The first of the intruders emerged from the darkness, and it was every bit as horrifying as the holograms had depicted. The skeletal creatures were insect-like, their elongated limbs ending in serrated claws that gleamed under the chamber's light. Their eyeless faces were dominated by rows of razor-sharp mandibles that clicked incessantly as they advanced. There were 5 at first, then 10, then more, swarming into the chamber like a tide of death. "Open fire!" Tarek bellowed. The room erupted into chaos as the away team unleashed a barrage of bullets and plasma bolts. The skeletal creatures were fast, darting across the walls and ceiling with unnatural agility. Simmons and Vega focused their fire on the closest targets, managing to take down a few, but for every one that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. "These things are relentless," Vega shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. Dr. Song, unarmed but determined, crouched behind one of the crystalline spires, her scanner clutched tightly in her hands. "Their exoskeletons are absorbing most of the energy from our weapons. Aim for the joints, it's their weak spot." "Easier said than done." Simmons growled, narrowly dodging a swipe from one of the creatures. Elara fired her sidearm with precision, taking down 2 of the creatures in quick succession. But even as they fought, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being overwhelmed. The alien seemed to sense it too. It finished its work at the console and turned to the team, making a sharp, urgent gesture for them to retreat deeper into the chamber. "We're falling back," Elara ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Regroup near the spires." The team moved quickly, covering each other as they retreated. The alien joined them, its fluid movements surprisingly graceful for its towering frame. As they reached the spires, the chamber's light shifted, and a low, resonating hum filled the air. The glyphs on the walls flared brightly, and a shimmering barrier of energy formed around the team, cutting off the advancing creatures. "What the hell?" Tarek said, his rifle still trained on the creatures as they clawed at the barrier, their mandibles clicking furiously. "The ship's defenses," Elara said, relief washing over her as she turned to the alien. "You did it." The alien nodded but didn't relax. It gestured toward the crystalline spires, then made a motion as if to lift something heavy. Elara realized what it was trying to convey. "It's powering up the ship," she said. "Those spires must be the key to activating it." "Great," Tarek said, glancing at the writhing mass of creatures outside the barrier. "How long is that going to take?" The alien hesitated, then held up its hand, spreading its spindly fingers wide. 5 minutes, maybe 10. It might as well have been an eternity. The creatures outside the barrier began to shift tactics, their claws sparking against the energy field as they tested its strength. One of them let out a high-pitched screech, and the others responded in kind, their movements growing more coordinated. Alera's stomach twisted as she realized what was happening. "They're adapting," she said. "The barrier won't hold them for long." "Then we hold them off as long as we can," Tarek said, his jaw set. "If this ship is our best chance to stop that fleet, we make sure it powers up." The team braced themselves as cracks began to form in the energy barrier. The alien moved to one of the spires, its hands glowing faintly as it interfaced directly with the crystalline structure. The room's vibrations grew stronger, and the hum of power became almost deafening. The barrier shattered. The creatures swarmed in, but this time, the team was ready. Tarek and Simmons worked in tandem, their weapons tearing through the closest attackers with surgical precision. Vega and Dr. Song focused on keeping the alien safe, using what little cover the spires provided to fend off the creatures that got too close. Alera fought like a whirlwind, her shots precise and unyielding as she protected her team. Time seemed to stretch and compress in the chaos of battle. Alera's arms burned, her ears rang, and her vision blurred from the strain, but she refused to falter. The alien, its focus unwavering, continued its work, its glowing hands moving in a blur of motion. Finally, the spires reached their full luminosity, and the chamber was bathed in a blinding light. The creatures recoiled, their screeches turning to panicked clicks as the light intensified. The ship shuddered violently, and Alera felt a sudden weightlessness as it began to rise. The skeletal creatures fled, retreating into the shadows as the ship's systems roared to life. The hum of power became a triumphant chorus, and the alien turned to Alera, its glowing eyes filled with something she could only describe as gratitude. "We're airborne," Tarek said, his voice tinged with awe. "But now what?" Alera stared at the alien, then at the console, where the hologram of the skeletal fleet loomed large. "Now," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion, "we take the fight to them." The ship surged forward, the faint hum of its engines growing into a deep, resonating roar that echoed through its vast corridors. Outside, the void of space stretched infinitely, but the alien vessel was no longer just a derelict husk drifting in the dark. It was alive. Lights flickered across its massive hull, glyphs glowing with a renewed intensity as the ship responded to its ancient pilot's commands. The skeletal creatures that had swarmed the chamber were nowhere to be seen, but Alera knew their retreat was temporary. They'd be back, and the next time, they wouldn't hesitate. The hologram above the console shifted, displaying a map of the surrounding star systems. The skeletal fleet was still moving, a dark cloud of death cutting through the void with terrifying precision. They were on a direct path to human space, and they were gaining speed. How long until they reached the outer colonies? Alera asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. Dr. Song studied the hologram, her brow furrowed. "At their current speed, 3 days. Maybe less if they accelerate." Tarek crossed his arms, his expression grim. "Even with this ship, we're outnumbered. That fleet isn't just a threat to us, it's an extinction-level event." Alera turned to the alien, who was standing at the console, its glowing hands moving rapidly across the glyphs. It paused, sensing her gaze, and gestured toward the hologram. The map zoomed in on a system just beyond the Kalrath expanse, where a dense asteroid field orbited a small, dying star. Glyphs flickered across the display, but their meaning was clear even without translation. "It's a trap," Alera realized, her eyes narrowing. "It wants us to lure the fleet into the asteroid field." "And what?" Tarek asked. "Hope they crash into some rocks." "No," Song said, her voice tinged with excitement as she scanned the glyphs. "The asteroids aren't ordinary. They're highly magnetic, dense with exotic materials that could disrupt the fleet's systems. If we can activate the ship's weapons and force the fleet into that field, it could neutralize a large portion of their forces." "That's a big if," Simmons muttered, his hands still gripping his rifle. "We've barely figured out how to fly this thing, let alone fire its weapons." Alera stepped forward, her jaw set. "Then we figure it out. This ship isn't just a relic, it's a weapon, and it's the only chance we've got." The alien let out a series of sharp clicks, its glowing eyes locking onto Alera with what she could only interpret as determination. It gestured for her to follow, leading her and the team deeper into the ship. They moved quickly, navigating corridors that seemed to shift and change with every step. The ship was alive, adapting to their presence, guiding them toward its core. When they arrived, the chamber was unlike anything they had seen before. Massive, crystalline structures spiraled upward, their surfaces glowing with energy. Glyphs covered every inch of the walls, pulsing in rhythm with the ship's power. At the center of the room was a console unlike the others, larger, more intricate, and clearly designed for something monumental. The alien moved to the console, placing its hands on the glowing surface. The chamber responded immediately, the spiraling crystals flaring to life as the ship's power reached its peak. Alara felt a surge of energy course through the floor beneath her feet, a tangible hum of raw potential that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "What's it doing?" Tarek asked, his voice low. "It's activating the ship's primary weapon," Song said, her eyes wide as she studied the readings on her scanner. "Whatever this thing is, it's powerful enough to take out an entire fleet, if we can aim it." The alien gestured for Alara to step forward. She hesitated for only a moment before placing her hands on the console beside it. The glyphs flared brighter, and a surge of data flooded her mind, not in words, but in feelings, impressions, and images. She saw the skeletal fleet, its ships bristling with weapons. She saw the asteroid field, its magnetic anomalies creating a chaotic labyrinth. And she saw the ship she now stood on, a weapon of unimaginable power that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for this moment. "It's showing me how to fire it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you sure you can handle it?" Tarek asked, his concern evident. Alara looked at him, determination blazing in her eyes. "I don't have a choice." The ship accelerated toward the asteroid field, its engines roaring as it closed the distance. The skeletal fleet detected their movement almost immediately, and the hologram showed dozens of ships breaking off to pursue them. Alara gripped the console, focusing on the impressions flooding her mind. The alien stood beside her, its presence steady and reassuring, a silent reminder that she wasn't alone. "They're gaining on us," Simmons reported, his voice tight. "Let them," Alara said. "We need them to follow us into the field." The ship entered the asteroid field at breakneck speed, weaving through the dense debris with a precision that defied belief. The skeletal ships followed, their serrated designs cutting through the chaos like blades. But the field was more than just rocks, it was alive with energy, magnetic pulses creating distortions that sent several of the pursuers crashing into asteroids. "We've lost some of them, but the main fleet is still coming," Song said. Alara focused on the console, her mind syncing with the ship's systems. She could feel the power of the weapon charging, a growing crescendo of energy that vibrated through every fiber of her being. The alien beside her placed its hand on hers, its glowing eyes meeting hers with a look of solidarity. Together, they activated the weapon. The ship's spiraling crystals flared with blinding light, and a beam of energy erupted from its hull, cutting through the asteroid field with devastating precision. The magnetic anomalies amplified the blast, creating a chain reaction that tore through the pursuing ships. Explosions lit up the void as the skeletal fleet was ripped apart, their once unstoppable advance reduced to debris. Cheers erupted from the team, but Alara didn't celebrate yet. The hologram showed that a portion of the fleet had survived, retreating toward deep space. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Alara turned to the alien, her expression resolute. "We've shown them what we're capable of, but they'll be back. If we're going to stop them for good, we'll need more than just this ship." The alien nodded, its clicks and growls conveying a sense of agreement. It gestured toward the hologram, where a new set of coordinates appeared, a distant system that pulsed with faint light. "What is that?" Tarek asked. Alara smiled faintly, a spark of hope in her eyes. "The next step." The ship turned, its engines flaring as it set course for the unknown. Humanity's fight for survival had just begun, but with allies like this, and a weapon to match, they stood a chance. Together, they would face the darkness, one battle at a time.